Hello and welcome back to the channel. Sometime I think last year, this guy made a debut on the channel. This is the Insta360 One X. I do like this camera an awful lot, although I haven't used it nearly as much as I probably should have. But anytime that I go out and about, anything sort of action-y or where I want to capture ultra smooth footage that I can edit in post, this guy has been in my pocket because it's so small and lightweight, and the footage always looks really nice. Which got me really excited when Insta360 came out with their newer camera, the One R, and even more excited when they reached out to me the other day and said, "Do you want to check it out?" Absolutely, please. So they did go ahead and ship me, as you can see, the Insta360 One R Twin Edition. If you're not familiar with it, the Insta360 One R, really interesting camera, modular. Not something you get to say about a lot of electronics nowadays. It's something that you can take apart, you can replace pieces and parts. So the kit that I do have here in front of me, you can see it's an interchangeable lens action camera, but it comes with two different modules. It's got the 360 module and the 4K wide angle module. And the idea is you have the battery on the bottom, you have sort of the brain over here, the screen, the controls and everything, and then the sensor. There are three of these available at the moment. Again, 360, 4K, and the 1-inch sensor, which has a large round lens on it. In terms of what you can do with it, 5.7K 360 degree capture, 4K wide angle capture, flow state stabilization, very nice, waterproof up to 5 meters. Although being modular, I'm kind of curious about how that's going to work. It still does the invisible selfie stick stuff that the previous camera did. Auto framing, auto editing. That's one of the things that makes this really special to me. The app, both for smartphones as well as for your desktop, can do all of this stabilization in post. It can do all of the reframing in post. Super nice. This one also has a hyperlapse feature, voiced controls, 8x slow-mo, 4x slow-mo in 360. That sounds interesting. HDR and a night shot mode. Oh, and it even came with a 32 gig SanDisk memory card on the back. By the way, there's a list of all the stuff that comes in the box that you're about to see. As you might have noticed, they also sent me the invisible selfie stick to go along with it. I did already have the invisible selfie stick from the Insta360 One X, but supposedly this one's a little bit different, so when I get this out, I'll take a look at it and compare. In fact, why not do that right now? I can immediately see there's going to be a difference because this would not have fit in this box. So here's the new, improved invisible selfie stick as compared to the previous model, just side by side. That's a ridiculous difference. That's half the size. I'm curious about how far it extends. So the previous one extended out to be like 3.5 feet long. The new one apparently does not twist, you just pull. And it's definitely not the same length, but realistically, this was a little bit long. But they both do have kind of the same head on them, the tripod head, so it makes it easy to interchange. And just to be specific, the previous pole went out to 46 inches. The new one is about 27. On the back, it does say extended height, 27.56 inches. But still, if you've got a camera on the end of this, that's going to be plenty far enough away for most things. This previous pole was definitely a little bit more than I needed. Although I did kind of like the twist to lock in place. This one I think is just going to be it's push, it's just pressure sensitive, but this will be a whole lot easier to carry around with me. But enough blathering. What comes in the box? Well, all the stuff you saw just a minute ago, of course. Video over. And inside the box, you can see here at the top, we have the 4K wide angle lens with the brain. It says 1R on it. On the back, you've got the screen. Little description of it right here. 4K wide angle, f2.8, 16.4 millimeter equivalent. You've got this 360 module here. It says on the top, flow state stabilization, dual lens 360, f2.0, 7.2 millimeter equivalent. And then the battery module that fits onto the bottom. This feels very solid. It all feels very well built and solid, of course. And down here in the bottom, there's another box with a USB cable, a quick start guide, waterproofing information, which by the way mentions 1R is waterproof only after being fully assembled and installed in the mounting bracket. Be sure the lens mod and core have been firmly connected and the battery buckle has been snapped in place. Basically to say these things are not waterproof on their own, they're not even water resistant on their own, so if you want to, put them firmly together before putting them in water. Some more documentation and silica gel and desiccants for lens mod. Oh, that's interesting. If you plan to use the 1R in humid environments or any environments where there's lots of temperature difference, seal your lens mod in a bag together with the desiccants for at least 12 hours in advance to reduce lens fogging. That's really interesting. I've never seen a product where they actually say to keep the silica gel. There's also a lens cleaner in there. And finally, the cage. It says point to track. This looks like a 360 lens cover. Very solid feeling. And the tripod mount adapter, the action camera style mount here. So we'll go ahead and finish setting all this up. Peel that off. Peel the screen protector off. We'll get this guy uncovered. And the lens is uncovered. So in case you're curious, because I definitely was, This is what the connectors look like between the camera and the other part of the housing. And from what I understand, you just sort of pull these and they come apart just like that. Oh, and that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. So on the camera section, at least on this one, you've got one connector, so you can put it in either way and it'll work. And on the 360 one, it's got two connectors, so both of the camera lenses are talking to the brain. But that's a really interesting design, because this way you have the same kind of connector for both sides, then the other side of it on the lens, so you just fit it together. In my case, I'm going to be doing probably a lot of selfie video, so I just flip it around, pop them back together, and there you have it. Of course, the buttons are now on this part, so I do have to flip it over. Then you attach the battery. There's only one way it's going to go on. That clicked together very easily. I was kind of surprised. So just so you can see it again, just to make sure I'm doing this correctly, you kind of slide this end in first, and then click. Makes a very light click, but it feels very firm, very secure. I mean, I'm pulling really hard on this and it's not coming apart. There is a latch on the back. You just push that and it pops off. I haven't seen a video where somebody's shown that yet. I will say I've watched several videos on this and I was seriously about to buy this. The exact same thing I said about the 1X. I had it in my cart. I was about to buy it. I talked myself out of it because it's like, I'm overwhelmed, I'm overloaded. And then they reached out and offered to send it to me. Not suggesting that you do that. But let's go ahead and power this on. So this button here in the middle is the power. That's the record button. These are just clips in case you wanted to flip this over. There you can see language, English, Insta360 1R, install the app, and connect your camera to activate. Luckily, I did install the app ahead of time. So I click on the camera button, I click connect now, choose your camera, it just popped up, and it's telling me to update the firmware. Here are the differences in the firmware. It's 1.1.20. Flow state stabilization is now improved. Voice control supports 360 photo mode. Voice control supports shooting in currently set mode. Basic stabilization supports 4K 25, 24, MP4 in 4K wide angle lens. And we're back a few minutes later. Firmware has updated. Now it's wanting to activate, so I'm going to go ahead and hit that button. It says do not disconnect. And it says it is activated. And we hit start. And now you can see the overhead camera and part of my face. On the screen, we do have some options here. It says we have 46% battery remaining, no SD card. That does remind me, I didn't really walk around the camera much. We'll get to that in a second. Standard video, I can tap on that and go to HDR, time-lapse, or auto time shift. 4K 60, 16:9 as a default. We can do 4K 30, 4K 25, 24, 4K 30, 4:3, and I'm sure I can just swipe over and keep going. More 4:3, 2.7 100 frames per second, 16:9, 1080p 200, 16:9, and all the way down, and then 1440p, 30, 25, and those are all 4:3 as well. And then ultra, we have the different fields of view: ultra, wide, linear, and narrow, auto or manual, so we can do manual exposure presumably. Then we get a little exposure compensation if we're on auto mode. White balance, not sure what that button means. Yeah, it doesn't have anything to let me know what that means. Log off or log on, so we could set it to log profile to get a slightly more flat image. Yeah, you can probably see it changed a little bit there. Change it back, and then we'll see, yeah, it goes to a much more vivid image, and that's just for video. If I click the button here, we switch over to photo, and there's a bunch of options here as well. I'm curious, yes, you can do RAW plus JPEG, that's pretty nice. And then you've got ISO and shutter priority and full manual mode. Manual meaning that you can do ISO and shutter speed, and that's about it. White balance, of course. Oh, I missed the other end of this. Single shot, HDR, burst, interval photo, night shot, 4:3 or 16:9, field of view, timer settings, and we'll go back to auto for now. And then taking a second to go back around the camera some more. Again, as I started to mention, power button right here. This is your capture, your shutter button. On the side, there's a little door. We'll just pop that open. There's a trigger there you kind of pull to open it. USB-C and micro SD card slots there. So I'll go ahead and stick this micro SD card they so kindly provided in. I'm gonna use a thumbnail to kind of get it in there. There you go. On the back, you got a blue light. And then I think this is probably speaker. There's gonna be some microphones built in. And get this door closed again. I've done it a couple of times now and it's a little bit finicky. Just kind of squeeze it hard and it does close. On the other side, it just mentions flow state stabilization. On the back, again, as we mentioned earlier, the 4K wide angle. And that's about all there is to it in terms of the camera, except for the screen. I'm not sure what you're going to be able to see on the screen here because the overhead camera is being a little finicky, but it does show I have 52 minutes remaining, 4K 16:9 60. It says swipe down to access shortcut menus. There we go, that helped a little bit. Swipe up to switch shooting modes, swipe right to access the media gallery, swipe left to adjust camera settings. So If we swipe down now, we've got a brightness option, so I can take it way down if I want. Actually, I will take it way down, which will make it easier on camera. Then I've got a lock button, temporarily disable touchscreen operations. Swipe up to turn that back off. There's a button here. It looks like AirPods. From what I remember I saw in Mari Hipoyo's video, you can pair your AirPods with this. It says press the button on the AirPods charging case until the white light flashes, then tap start search. Reading from this angle is difficult. And there's a light on, so I'll tap that. Turn off the front and rear status indicators. If you don't want those on, you can turn them off. Swipe over, grid, camera screen rotation direction, voice controls, and then settings. And in the settings, you've got a lot of the same settings we mentioned earlier. File format. There is wind noise reduction in here. Off, intense, and voice boost. There's also a Bluetooth remote option. So I could use a Bluetooth remote there if I had one. Again, I can swipe over to change some more camera settings like we did in the app. Swipe from the other side, but there's no files on here at the moment. Swipe up from the bottom. We went from standard to photo, standard. Yeah, this is a little finicky. Standard photo, time shift, video in the middle. I don't know why that's doing that. Anyway, we're in video mode now. And without any further ado, I think it's actually time to record a little bit of video. This camera's getting a little warm in my hand. Just the brain section of it. The rest of it feels pretty cool to the touch. But this rubber section on the back is getting a little warm. So let's record some, I would say 4K 60, but I'm recording this video at 4K 24, so there's not really a whole lot of reason to. And I almost missed it. If you tap in this corner here, 4K 16 by 960, if I just tap that, I can turn it to, screen is kind of difficult to deal with, but I'll put it all the way down to 24 at this point, because again, I'm filming at 4K 24, and let's just see. Alrighty, this is my first video, my first official test of the Insta360 1R. I'm in the ultra wide setting, so you can see everything going on around me. I'm curious to see how the audio sounds, to see how much handling noise there is. I'm just sort of moving my hands around now. Let's try out a couple of the other zoom modes. So this is the wide setting on the Insta360 1R 4K module. Again, for filming at 4K 24 frames per second. There's a flag button on the screen. I'm not sure what that's for. Let's see. It marked it. I don't know what that mark did, but moving on. This is the linear mode with the 4K module on the Insta360 1R. Again, filming at 4K 24 frames per second. Doesn't look like it's made a massive amount of difference from the wide, but it's definitely a lot closer than it was on the ultra wide, I think. And this is narrow on the 4K module for the Insta360 1R. It looks a little bit more narrow than the linear mode was, but again, it doesn't look massively different on the tiny screen. It's a very small screen, so it's kind of hard to really see what the difference is. But still, 4K 24 on the 4K module in narrow mode. And interestingly, looking through the clips on here, they all look like they have exactly the same framing. But then once I hit play, you can see it's definitely a lot more zoomed in. There we go, a little easier to see. So I'm going to pull all these clips into their app on the computer. I'm going to see what they look like and how everything sounds and everything with a good pair of headphones. And as an interesting update in the middle of the video here, I just wanted to show you how some of the software works on the desktop. So if I drag these video files that I captured earlier into the app, they do pop up here and you can see the video. But what you might notice over here on the right hand side, these are all the things that you can change. So you can turn on and off flow state stabilization, true audio, you can have it set to off, vocal enhancement, or remove background noise. You can even change the field of view. So that whole test where I was going through and changing the field of view, I can just click this button and it does it for me, which is awesome. There's even an ultra wide plus, but that appears to squeeze it in sort of a weird way. I don't know if that's making it anamorphic or what. These are things that I was aware of ahead of time, I just kind of forgot. But here's a sample of the first clip that I did. I'll do a quick before and after. So without the audio enhancement. This is my first video, my first official test of the Insta360 1R. And then with the vocal enhancement. This is my first video, my first official test of the Insta360 1R. What's also really cool about this is when you hit the export button up here, you get a few more options. Of course, you can take the bitrate and you can go super, super high with it. You can change the encoding format to H.265 to be a little bit better of a codec. But this one right here is what really caught my attention. Remove grain. So as you might have noticed from that first clip, super grainy in the darker parts of the image, even in the lighter parts of the image, because it is not a terribly bright room. But when I hit remove grain, and I did this for all 4 of the clips I've got here, it takes a long time. So I have in total like 2 minutes worth of footage. It probably took 10 to 15 minutes for my iMac from 2017 to parse through all of that and do the remove grain. But here's the before and after. So a short clip before. This is my first video, my first official test of the Insta360 1R. And then after remove grain. This is my first video, my first official test of the Insta360 1R. So needless to say, this app definitely makes it a much better camera. Just keep in mind, if you want to remove the grain, be prepared for a long wait. And we're back. I've actually had this camera for about 2 months now. To be honest, I just kind of fell behind on everything, but I would like to wrap it up now. I did take this camera with me on a family outing. We went out on my parents' boat and I took the 360 module, got some really nice footage out there. And as I mentioned in the earlier clip, using their editing software, just like I talked about in the 360 video from the 360X. Their software is amazing for that. The flow state stabilization is awesome. And I feel like this did a great job in an outdoor setting, in a very bright environment, as most action cameras do. After having used this on and off for the past 2 months, my only real complaints about this system are very minimal. One, as I kind of mentioned earlier in the video, the screen is just ridiculously small. It's very similar in size to the one on the DJI Osmo Action, except to use the screen on the front of the Osmo Action, I don't have to completely disassemble it and flip it around. I just double tap a button on the side. That does sort of bring me to the other part of this. I love the idea of it being a modular camera. I love the idea of buying one package and getting multiple things in it, but managing and keeping up with this. Like I said, when I went out on the boat with the family, I took the 360 module. I did not take the 4K module because realistically the footage isn't any better than the footage from my cell phone, but I can definitely see the value of having something like this where you put it all into one module, and especially the 4K module and being able to change the field of view after the fact. That is an excellent feature. But again, small screen, and if you wanted to flip it around, you have to actually take the battery off, pull this apart, flip it back together, put it back together, and then stick it back in this casing. I think that's the one thing I would love to see improved on the next version. And actually, I think they do have a separate battery module for this now, a larger battery module that has the connectivity, the tripod mount at the bottom of it. So, or maybe it has the action camera mount. I'm not sure which one it has. I'll put a link to it if I can find it. That would probably feel a little bit better than having to actually take the whole thing apart after removing it from this case. So it's a great concept and it works really well, and the software continues to be amazing. So if you're in the market for an action camera and a 360 camera, or one or the other, this definitely checks the boxes. Just keep in mind that if you are wanting both of these and you want to be able to switch back and forth, you're gonna have to take the time and then, okay, I've got to take the battery off and then I've got to pull this apart and then I've got to put this on and make sure everything lines up. That's not the right part. Make sure that everything lines up and then put the battery back and make sure everything lines up again. I'm clearly out of practice. There we go. That probably took me 20 seconds. It's not that big of a deal, but if I'm walking around a theme park, which I know we don't do in nowadays, but if I were, or if I was at the zoo, which again, we don't really do anymore, or wanting to vlog something and, oh, let's very quickly get a 360 video, or I'm in 360 mode and, oh wait, I want to get a shot for the vlog section of this. That means that I would have to take this apart and then put it back together with the correct module, making sure to point everything in the right direction and line everything up and then put the battery pack back on. I'm still having trouble getting the battery attached, but still 10 to 15 seconds to do that. But then what do I do with this additional piece? So if this is something you're planning to carry around with you, probably keep a spare pocket or something you can keep this safe in, but I don't know. It feels like there's gotta be a slightly better way to do this. I love the concept, I love the footage, I love the software. It's the implementation that could use a little bit of work for version 2, and I did not get a chance to try it out with the AirPods, but what I saw from other people's videos like Maddie Hapoya, it's still, again, very early for that. Hopefully something they can get working better in the future as well, because the AirPods do have a good quality microphone in them, and I would love to see that work seamlessly with this. But I think that's where I'll wrap it up. Thank you guys, as always, for watching. Again, thanks to Insta360 for sending this thing out for me to take a look at. I'm actually getting ready to go on a vacation with my family this weekend, so I'll probably pack this in my bag to take along with this as well. Anyway, if you want to see more videos whenever they come out, or if you want to see the vlogs that are going to come out of this upcoming trip, I've got a second channel. I don't mention it terribly often. We have a family vlogging channel that we use every so often. So I'll put a link to where you can find that down below, as well as a link to this product and the kit and everything. I think they have a sale going on through like the middle of the month, maybe the middle of August. I'll put a link to whatever I've got down in the video description. Affiliate links that do help to support the channel. So if you use them, doesn't cost you anything extra, helps support the channel. I definitely appreciate it. Again, if you liked it, hit the thumbs up. If you are not already and you want to be, subscribe to the channel. Again, doesn't cost you anything, and you can get notified when my new videos come out. Ring the notification bell. It can send you a little notice anytime there is a new video, and I will see you again in the next one. Bye guys.